Yeshua, your King of praise. Shalom, everyone. This is Messianic Rabbi Buzz Tremé, the Jew teaching you. Welcome to our Bible study. Yeshua, you are the way. Yeshua. Let's get started, and we're going to be talking about the Promised Land Covenant. And because we have many covenants, the first being the eternal covenant, the Edenic covenant, the Adamic covenant, the Noahic, the Avrahamic or Abrahamic, the Mosaic, and the Promised Land covenant. This one right here is the one that nobody ever mentions, or at least not much, and people don't talk about. There is some talk about the Davidic covenant, somewhat, and then of course the New Covenant is talked about a lot. But the one covenant in the Bible that's talked about mostly is the Mosaic, and we've spent a lot of time on it. And this is the covenant where God gave Israel the law. So we've discussed that. It plays a big part in God's plan. And so now we're ready to move to the Promised Land Covenant. Let's turn, and by the way, your syllabuses are about to be revised. I'm going to give you more pages. And remember, the plan is we've got about 40, almost 50 pages in the syllabus, and we shouldn't have too many more pages to go. But when it's done, Jeffrey Newman is going to take the whole thing and then put it into a better form. You know, he's an editor, and we're going to make a book out of it so that it'll be a permanent book. But as it is, it's a typed outline that I've done, and it's got lots of goodies in it, lots of extra notes. Very often when I feel like something needs to be put into the teaching that is helpful, I will put it, because this is going to be being recorded, and we want people in the future, somebody plugs into lesson number 16 or 14, whatever the case is, we want to be able to get not just that day's lesson, but the material that surrounds it, things that accent it. So today we're talking about the Promised Land Covenant, and you don't have this page, and you will have it, but it's not ready to be printed yet. So, of course, the name of the covenant, we will say the Holy Land Covenant or the Promised Land Covenant, but historically, theologians have sort of misnamed it, and I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but they called it the Palestinic Covenant. And that's because prior to Israel being back in the land in 1948, remember the Emperor Hadrian, I think it was, changed the name of Israel to Palestine. And he did that, and it literally meant Syria, Palestina. Or did I say it right? Maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, he named the land of the Philistines. And it was to insult insult the Israelis. And he also changed the name of Jerusalem to Aliyah, what was it? Whatever it is. I'm teaching Hebrew on Thursday nights and practicing Greek in the daytime, so I'm in a lot of other things right now. But anyway, changed the name of Jerusalem and dedicated it to Zeus. And he changed the Temple Mount into a place of worshiping Zeus, which was the Roman god. And by the way, that comes down to us, it ends up, we have the term Jupiter, just for your information. That comes from Zeus Pater. Zeus Pater ends up in English being called Jupiter, and it means It's Latin for Zeus, father. Zeus being our father. And so anyway, that is the situation. So it was called the Palestinic covenant, meaning the covenant that God made with Israel about the land of Palestine. Now, we don't call it Palestine, we call it the land of Israel because that's what God calls it. And it is also called the land of promise, the promise that God made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so, the name of the covenant, I just gave it to you. Let's see. The purpose of the covenant, it was to provide, and this is important, this word, an eternal dwelling for the nation of Israel. Okay? This piece of real estate was given to Israel, promised to Israel as an eternal inheritance. So we have to remember, now that in Christianity very often is lost, shoved under the rug, and overlooked, bystepped, bypassed, and there's lots of reasons for that. Mainly was that the Romans that took over the church through their political and military power, the Roman Empire took over the church in the 4th century. And they called themselves the Universal Church, the Roman Universal Church. And it was very different from the original Jewish church, which was open to all nations. But it was the Jewish church, as the Bible tells us. So the Roman church then set up a new way of worship, a new manner, a new religion. Well, it was actually a combination of a few things, but it kept at the heart of it their old pattern of pagan worship. And it's called the Roman Catholic Church. So the word Catholic means universal. So and it existed already, and you can do some research of where it came from, and you will come to a guy by the name of the guy that Peter, what's his name? That Peter rebuked because he said, "Can I buy the ability to lay hands on people for the impartation of the Holy Spirit?" Remember the guy? Well, history tells us he was so embarrassed at the rebuke that Peter gave him that he was a Samaritan, and he went to Rome and began to preach the Roman. He said that it's not a Jewish church, it's going to be a Roman church. And church history covers this and tells us that they went to him, talked to him, said, "Don't do this. This is not right. You can't change the gospel." And he did, and it was called the Roman Catholic Church. It eventually was accepted by Constantine and his mother into the empire to be the religion of the Roman Empire. Okay? So it wasn't a Christian religion. It was something that, what's his name? Gosh, I told somebody I'm a little dragging today, and so it is, but been busy the last few days. Anyway, that's the way it is, but gives you some background, and maybe I don't need to say these things for everybody to hear, but you can research it and find out. But anyway, eventually the Roman Church was established. They held their first council in 325 AD, in which they established the Trinity. Now, the Trinity was never heard of until 250 AD, when Tertullian issued a document on it. They rejected him, but they liked this because it worked for them. It enabled them to prove that Jesus is God. And that was a big thing they had to do. And you know, it's amazing how the words were used in it to bring it around to where Jesus could be considered God. What a peculiar thing. I mean, we know we know the truth. But the point is, if they could do that, then they can say, and so therefore his mother is the mother of God. There had to be a way to keep this female image in the deity, and it's a quad actually. And so the mother of God retained her place because throughout the Roman Empire there was a mother of God figure in each of the cultures that they conquered. Each of the little nations, they had a trinity, and there was also a place for this Queen of Heaven. So the Queen of Heaven is a concept that existed in Roman paganism, goes back to Babylon, but the Romans brought it in, and suddenly it becomes Mary, the mother of Jesus, who they say is the mother of God. Now, this is a twist, and it's not the truth, but this power took over much of the world, and it conquered Europe. And in 1054, the Great Schism took place, and the Roman Catholic Church split into two legs, fulfilling the prophecy of Daniel about the giant with the two legs. The Roman, if you're facing this way, the Roman Catholic Church on the west, it was all Roman Catholic, but then it broke, and so the guys on the right became known as the Greek Orthodox Church. Same spirit, same church. One preferred Latin as the base language, one Greek, and they argued over some other things. Rome wanted all power, and the people of the Eastern Empire wanted Constantinople today. What was it called? It's Istanbul today. It was called Constantinople. They wanted that as the head. So it's political powers, but these political powers masquerading as spiritual powers cursed each other. And the Roman Catholic Church cursed the Eastern Church, and the Eastern Church cursed the Latin Church, the Roman Catholic, and both of them damned each other to hell. And so, but in 1500 on the western side, the Reformation broke loose, and much of what had been taught from this Roman influence and this Roman church influence remained or retained its place in Christianity. And so Europe had been filled. Martin Luther, John Calvin, these guys retained their Roman roots theology, such as Rome had replaced Israel as the chosen of God. And so naturally the Roman church, which had become corrupt, was to be reformed, and that was their plan in Europe. The reformers they protested the Roman corruption and said, let's reform it. Well, the founding of America and the people coming over and all of the political events that took place led to America being founded loosely and roughly on a Christian basis, but theologically it was still building on replacement theology because Israel had been considered cast aside because they failed, and the Jews were always to be persecuted. It's been practiced right here in America as it was in Europe throughout the Dark Ages under the Catholic Church, and then in the Protestant Reform, we know Martin Luther taught that they were to burn the Jews, put them in their homes and in their synagogues and light it on fire. Okay? John Calvin did the same thing, and this was carried out. So I read these guys, their studies and so on, but I also see the deficiency in it. And, you know, you got to be careful when you mention these guys, because today so many people are, well, I'm a Calvinist and this and that. Well, I'm not a Calvinist. I'm a follower of Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm a part of his seed. So I'm not hooked on to any man except Jesus Christ, okay? And I like his apostles' teaching more than I like the European reformers who were caught up in replacement theology. Nobody has replaced Israel, and God proved that in 1948 when he brought them back to the land. Correctly? I mean, right? Correct? Right.
Show us your